Hi class, so here is the second audio video PowerPoint presentation for LP1. It's going to talk a little bit about business models and a beginning discussion on um, using accumulating databases and using databases for e-marketing. But before we get into that, again, here is the Part B of the LP1 seminar assessment. It's fairly easy. It just says discuss a company that's been around a while, so this would be like pre-internet, and how they've used the internet to transform themselves by modifying or expanding their business model, promotional activities, level of customer service, and or etc. There's lots and lots of examples. Don't use Apple. It's beaten up, overused. What are some of the things that these companies have done? What have been some of the applications? One company that transformed itself very significantly, and you can use it if you want to explore it, is IBM. Even companies like, or products like M&M have done a really good job, or Procter & Gamble in general. So pick something, explore it, give me at least a couple of sources that you cite to demonstrate that you've researched it at least a little bit. So, Chapter 3 talks about a business model, and business models are worth understanding when it comes to the internet because the internet has been such a dynamic tool for so many companies in expanding, modifying, enhancing their business model. And I would say that a business model, here's the definition from the text, but a business model really is just the way a business makes its money. And so Apple, for example, has used the internet to create a myriad of different revenue streams, downloading apps, downloading music, etc. What are the functions of business model? Well, a business model, again, is how they make their money, so it articulates the value proposition. It generally involves identifying your target market segment. It'll define the value of, or the structure rather, of the value chain. I was just giving you an example with Apple. There's all these different tangents in their business model, and it defines the cost structure and the potential profit to be made, and it explains the position of the company and the product or service in the value network, and it sets forth a competitive strategy. Now, a common way, and it doesn't, I don't know if it talks about this in the book or not, but a very common feature in a lot of business models on the web is this aggregation and matching. And it is the common factor in various business models, including B2B, B2C, and C2C, some of which I've stated examples here. C2C is a customer to customer, and that's basically the position as a matcher and aggregator that eBay plays. Amazon's about connecting customers to different businesses that offer different products. And then an example of B2B is Intercontinental Commodities Exchange. It's a good company that came into play about a decade or so ago. The stock symbol actually is ICE. And it's been a great one in terms of examples of acting as a facilitator between different commodities, buyers and sellers. So they get involved in things like real-time purchases of oil for oil tankers all over the world, grain, uh, fertilizer for farmers, all kinds of things. So these aggregation and matching models work well when the cost of processing is otherwise very high. So let's say if you want to buy a washing machine or a camera, from both the buyers and the seller standpoint, the processing costs are high. In a brick and mortar situation, there has to be a retail environment for the shopper to go to. The shopper has time costs and out-of-pocket costs to do their search for that product. So going on this, when the intermediary can be neutral, and trading volumes are massive, they can have significant savings because the whole value is changed and made far more efficient. There are other models, and it's discussed in your text. I'm not going to present them all here, but besides facilitators, there's other revenue models that can be created on the internet. There's advertising, direct sales for a company like Nordstrom's or a brick and mortar that wants to sell online. I think that Nordstrom's online rack replacement is called HUAT, H-U-A-T or H-A-U-T. There's subscription models like Netflix or Pay As You Go is another one. If you want to download a piece of news, you can pay for it up front. You've got other subscriptions like a lot of the news services, newspapers and magazines have gone online. So there's a lot of different business models. Now Chapter 4 is a little bit about direct and database foundations. I'm just going to go through this really quickly. But the basic strategies employed by the internet for businesses is mechanisms that assist in the acquisition, conversion, and retention of consumer growth or value. And this is nothing more than an extension of something that, for those of you that have taken Introduction to Marketing or some other marketing courses, of the consumer decision process. And in old school, the traditional ways to do that were coupons and advertising in newspapers and TV, and the internet has sort of turned all this upside down. Remember that the three primary marketing applications of the internet are a billboard, the website, just to get your business presence out there. It can be a transaction vehicle, and it can be, for certain products, a distribution channel in and of itself. What the internet has done for consumers is it's changed the search process by augmenting the available information that consumers have available. And for somebody my age, I'm in my 60s, and I use it all the time to do searches for products, but I don't use it, quite honestly, I don't think, like younger generations do. For them, they're ensconced. It's almost a form of entertainment to do searches on different kinds of products, and it can come from sort of the traditional things of searching for a new washing machine to finding a new restaurant, which pre-internet was extremely difficult to do. It was almost entirely word of mouth. Now it's really extended what's called the long tail that I mentioned earlier, and it just makes lots of different possibilities available for lots of different businesses. It's been sort of a wonderful aspect of it. So the internet, by expanding search processes, allows lots and lots of businesses to be involved in all stages of that consumer decision process. It's more effective as a tool to make buyers aware, become familiar with products by engaging them in conversations, enhancing considerations, allowing them to shop online and actually consummate a purchase. It's an extremely wonderful tool for businesses and the consumer in general. It's made the consumer much more powerful in the entire process. Now, your book discusses a particular business, Harrah's Club, that's used data mining to enhance its communications with its customers, but it's also a great example of a company that has used the internet and data gathering in general from all aspects of operation to create products for different target markets within its customer base by simply better understanding who those target markets and those niches are. If you want to know what I'm looking for in Part B of the seminar assessment, Harrah's is a good example. And in that sense, you can't use Harrah's. If you'd have looked at Harrah's pre-internet and pre-big data gathering, you would have thought that the high rollers are where most of the money comes from, but that's simply not the case. When they looked at the data closely, they found out that the majority of their people were often elderly who gambled on for entertainment on machines like penny machines. And this really fits if you look at the data. 26% of patrons generate 82% revenue. That fits nicely into what's called the 80-20 rule, which is 20% of your patrons generate about 80% of your revenue. That's true for banks, and all kinds of businesses. For beer makers, it's 20% of the beer drinkers produce 80% of revenues, or 80% of consumption. So it's a common phenom amongst different industries. And just real quickly, the fellow that Harrah's hired, I think in the late 80s or early 90s, just before the internet was taking off, was a Harvard PhD with a degree in marketing that had never worked in industry, but his expertise was really kind of segmentation and data crunching to determine who these segments were and what their individual characteristics were. And if you look at Harrah's now in Vegas, they own lots of different kinds of casinos for different kinds of consumers. They've got the old Harrah's, they've Caesars, they now call themselves Caesars, in fact. They've got Bally's, which caters to a younger and less, not less income, but they're not wealthy. But they're more in the playful. And I think they recently bought Planet Hollywood, which is sort of a similar kind of demographic. It's younger, probably late 20s through 30-somethings, very different, say, than Caesars, which is a higher income, more prestige-oriented sort of clientele. And they've got some cheapies that really cater to the penny slotters. So that's it for this one, and we'll talk to you later.